Welcome back. You're still watching Pt.3 English, and we are discussing about U.S. Investment Summit in Jakarta. Indonesia, it's big. But one thing when you talk about investment, okay, we need that, but the other thing about investment is how to channel them in the right direction. Indonesia, we know we have rich resources, but we also have a lot of human resources. If you had to weight it, which needs more priority in that sense? What about Andrew? What about?
Well, from a company point of view, clearly the human resources are today one of the barriers and one of the opportunity costs that exist. And it clearly isn't that there isn't a lot of talented people in Indonesia. The challenge is finding those people. And so that is, Indonesia's lagging behind, frankly, countries like Singapore and Malaysia. Companies will be much more willing to invest, particularly in the high-tech sector, and even traditional manufacturing today. These are high-speed machinery, and it takes engineering and technical know-how. Today, it's not there. The government recognizes this, but that is holding back Indonesia from realizing its full potential. And that from an investor point of view.
Yeah, I think human capital, of course, it's the government need to look at more on the human capital compared with natural resources. Of course, we have natural resources, but we have to rely on our human capital. And now I think the government have to look at, because based on our interview with the companies, many companies, especially for the middle management and top management, they find difficulties to find the right people for them. So I think it's the issue of our society to produce more on this.
But forming these people is not you just don't blink and then they're there. Sure. Unfortunately, we don't have a genie or whatever. It's a long-term thing. You form people, you need time. And what happens in the meantime?
Yeah, I think the government could give incentive for companies who have program to leverage the human capital for the training. For most of them are, for example, it's like a vocational training. So the government, I think, have issued a policy that give incentive for the companies who promote the training for the employees. Yes, that's the medium term.
And I would add to that from a company, and here's where the private sector can help. I'll give you an example. That we have one major company that was looking to put one of its research hubs here in Indonesia. Research hubs. And they were bringing the trainers, they were bringing the technical staff over to train people. They couldn't get a work permit for those people. There was the regulation said, no, you have to hire Indonesia. But these were the people that were training the people. And so as a result, that investment is in question. So global companies today, what they do is they move employees around. So they come to Indonesia, they bring technical staff in from other countries, give them the opportunity, take Indonesians, move them to Europe or the US. So it's a global economy. Today, unfortunately, the labor law, manpower constraints don't allow for that, and I think that's the detriment of Indonesia. So it's looking at specific, regulations that on paper may seem like, okay, we want to only hire Indonesians, but in fact have a counterproductive impact.
Because there is no Indonesian, so to speak, to take up those posts.
Or at least to train them and to get them. Look at oil and gas. We say there's very little exploration going today. A regulation was issued last year which does not allow anyone over the age of 55 to get a work permit in the oil and gas sector. Geologists, the average age for a geologist is 62. Those are the people that will be doing the training, but they unfortunately aren't allowed to work here in Indonesia. So there's little regulations which, when you add them up, unfortunately make it difficult for investors to be able to come to Indonesia today, and that's what the report focuses on.
And this is what the summit will try to do.
Yes.
Put across the problems that you're facing sector by sector.
That's right.
The other thing, when we talk about investment, there's I keep hearing like value-added investment. What is it?
Well, why don't you take that?
Yeah. Value added in them. Of course, as a host country, we would like to value added value added for the society, for the economy. But I think we need to be more careful because, for example, like in extractive industry, there is a regulation that required the mineralization of for the ore, like the copper.
Right.
So different have different values of. So the government have to be more specific. Yes, about because not. One policy fits all. For the yes. So there is need for a more in-depth study, because not all of this have a profit.
The specific value
issues,
added.
Yes. Exactly.
I think that's a good point. I mean, you mentioned mining. Take copper, for instance.
Right.
Copper, when it's already processed by the company, in this case of Freeport, is already 98% processed. So to make a company with copper value added, to make them build a smelter, very little returns, and it actually doesn't add any value, but each smelter costs $1.5 billion to $2 billion. So as Bhima said, a policy that has a blanket, it might make sense for ore or nickel, but if you apply that to copper, there's no incentive, there's no market for it, and there is in fact no added value from that investment.
Yeah, the challenge, I think I would like to add, Andrew, the challenge for the government have to engage with with companies when they make this regulation. Because
just not make them
I think that's one
at their own whim.
Yes, sure.
Right.
So engage.
It does make sense. Fortunately, we already have to break again.
Sure.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. Please stay with us, and we'll be back.